How can you really tell if a mind is open to learning or if it's kind of closed off? Well, psychologists will tell you the clues aren't in the surface level stuff like grades or how someone sounds. Nope, it's in the deeper behavioral patterns. And some of these patterns are massive red flags that a mind is really struggling to grow.
And here's the kicker. These traits, they're not some rare, obscure psychological quirks. The big observation from researchers is that they've actually become incredibly common. So this isn't about some niche diagnosis. It's about patterns we probably see all around us every single day. So how do we actually spot these patterns? Well, we're going to break it down into 5 key areas. We'll start with this deceptive thing called the confidence illusion. Then we'll dive into how feeling over fact can twist reality, and what it really means to be stuck in a behavioral loop. We're also going to unpack the ego's defense mechanism, and then most importantly, we'll look at the blueprint for how a mind can actually start to grow again.
All right, first up, the confidence illusion. This one is a huge piece of the puzzle, and the subtitle here really says it all. Feeling smart just isn't the same thing as being smart.
So one of the biggest, most obvious signs you'll see is this misplaced confidence. It's when someone speaks with total authority, absolute certainty, but about a topic they barely understand. And it's not just simple arrogance, it's like a mental habit, a shortcut, where people just state opinions as if they are facts without ever hitting the pause button to ask, wait a second, am I actually sure about this?
And yep, this whole phenomenon actually has a name, the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's this tricky cognitive bias where, ironically, the less someone knows about something, the less they're able to see that they don't know it. Their confidence becomes this kind of shield, and it deflects the very information that could help them learn and get better.
Now, this confidence illusion is often powered by our second pattern, feeling over fact. This is all about how information gets twisted and warped before our logical brain even gets a crack at it. This slide really breaks down what look like 2 totally different operating systems for the mind. On the left, you've got emotional reasoning, and here the only question that matters is, how does this information make me feel? If it's uncomfortable, if it feels offensive, or if it challenges what I already believe, it's immediately thrown out. But on the right, you have logical processing. Here the question is this information accurate? Challenges aren't seen as threats, they're seen as opportunities to maybe learn something. A mind that's stuck in that first column is basically locked out of any real growth.
And this kind of emotional filtering, it leads to all these other mental traps, like taking everything completely literally, missing all the metaphor and nuance, or that knee-jerk reaction to just instantly reject any new idea that seems strange or unfamiliar. And here's a really sneaky one, mistaking just being familiar with a topic for actually understanding it. Thinking you're an expert just because you've heard all the buzzwords. All of these are defense mechanisms against the hard work of genuine learning.
So these internal ways of thinking, they don't just stay inside our heads, right? They spill out into our actions. And that often creates our third pattern, getting stuck in a behavioral loop. This is all about repeating the same things over and over again while somehow expecting a different result.
A classic example of this is what's called the cycle of blame. It's basically a 4-step trap. First, you repeat a mistake. Second, you get a bad outcome. But here's the crucial third step. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong here? The blame gets shoved outward. It's the system's fault, it's somebody else's fault, it was just bad luck. And that leads directly to step 4, zero self-reflection. And of course, without any reflection, you're sent right back to step 1, ready to make the exact same mistake all over again.
And to keep from ever having to face that self-reflection, the mind seeks constant distraction. The endless scrolling, the background noise, the drama, it all serves a purpose. It fills the silence. Because for a mind that's avoiding responsibility, quiet time can feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable. It's just so much easier to stay busy than to face yourself.
This brings us right to the force that's lurking underneath a lot of these patterns, the ego's defense. This is all about what happens when winning the argument becomes way more important than actually learning something from it. Have you ever been in a conversation that just felt like a battle? That is the ego at work, and it uses some pretty specific tactics, turning every single discussion into a competition that has to be won, interrupting, talking over people, or just dismissing other viewpoints out of hand. And oh yeah, over-explaining simple opinions, as if talking more makes you more right. These are not tools for understanding, they are weapons for self-preservation. The goal is not connection, it is domination. And this quote just cuts right to the heart of it. They don't argue to understand, but to protect the ego. I mean, when the main goal is just to defend your sense of self, learning becomes impossible. The whole point of the conversation is no longer about finding the truth, it's just about being right.
Okay, so we've looked at a lot of patterns that stop learning dead in its tracks, and it might feel a little bleak, but is change even possible? The answer is absolutely yes, and that brings us to our final and honestly most important section, how a mind grows. It's about the path from certainty to curiosity.
This right here is the single most important message from all of the research. Intelligence is not set in stone. Our minds are not fixed objects. They can grow, they can change, they can develop. None of these patterns we've talked about have to be a life sentence.
But this kind of growth isn't automatic. It takes real, intentional practice. And the keys are surprisingly simple, but they're not easy. Slowing down, actually reflecting on why things turned out the way they did, actively questioning your own assumptions, learning to sit with the discomfort of not knowing something, or even being wrong, and finally, accepting responsibility. Every single one of these is a direct counterattack to the negative patterns we just discussed. And this brings us right to the core idea of this entire explainer. The real danger isn't having low intelligence, it's having low intelligence combined with absolute certainty. Look, being wrong is just part of being human. We all get things wrong. The real trap is being wrong and being completely convinced that you're right. That is when all learning just stops.
Because it all boils down to this one simple, powerful truth. The mind that never doubts itself can never learn.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. Which of these behaviors do you notice the most? Whether it's out in the world, online, or maybe even sometimes in yourself. It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for watching.